So the logging, we were fortunate enough, we were enrolled in an EQIP program there. It's a patch clear cut program through EQIP. They pay pretty good. Even though the timber wasn't worth much at all, not much more than pulp, we were able to entice the loggers to come in there and do the work for us. So, and I think we ended up with enough pulp that we didn't have to pay them. So we were able to pocket some of that money to pay for other improvements. But those EQIP programs are great for that, especially the timber value is so low.
Welcome to the Habitat Podcast, the podcast for wildlife habitat management, hunting strategy, and land stewardship. And now, your host, Jared Van Hees.
Welcome to the Habitat Podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Everland Outdoors. Formerly known as Aerial Wildlife Solutions, these guys make the best maps of your property with their drones. No satellite imagery, no blurry pictures, HD photography of your property. You can see every blind, every stand. I even see bedded deer on my 40 acres. Give Lee and Adam a call. West Michigan guys, startup company, making great maps, the best I've seen in the industry. Check them out at Everland Outdoors.
All right, guys, we're back. We have Mr. Co-host Andy Hutchins with a palm tree in the background. What are you doing down there, dude?
We're not doing any habitat work down here is what we're doing. We came down for the weekend, spent a little time by the pool, and we're going to come back to the snow here in a couple hours. So, been a good weekend. How you been?
Good. Did some skiing last weekend, getting some land plans buttoned up, and excited to chat with our special guest today. We got our good friend, Mr. Dave Skinner out of Kentucky. Dave, how you doing today?
Not nearly as good as Andy, obviously.
Yeah, it's not too bad, Dave. It's not too bad. Other than I guess we got like 10 inches of snow at home, so I'm gonna get to go home and shovel this afternoon.
Well, I'm doing better than those folks.
Okay, there you go.
Not much, but better than they are.
Love it. I love it.
So, Dave, why don't we start this off? Why don't we hear about where you're from, what you do for a living, kind of your background. Paint us a picture.
Yeah, so I live in Kentucky, been here for 20 plus years. For the last almost 14 years, I've worked for Whitetail Properties Real Estate. I'm a land specialist, which is a fancy term for a real estate agent. I just specialize in land. Probably my niche is hunting properties, but farmland, cattle ground, you name it. Don't do residential in town, all rural properties.
Okay, so 14 years. That's quite the tenure there. How are you enjoying it?
I love it, man. It's God could not have drafted up a better script for my life, I don't think.
Perfect.
That's amazing. And how'd you get into land and whitetails and I see you doing habitat work. I've been friends with you on Facebook for quite a while now. How'd you get into all that?
Man, you ever trip and fall into a bed of roses? That's kind of the way it happened. It goes back. So I didn't grow up hunting. I've told this story 100 times. I didn't grow up hunting. I joined the military right out of high school and met a guy over in Germany. We become best friends. He grew up with a river in his front yard and a mountain in his back in West Virginia, and was a big time bow hunter and got me to shooting a bow just for a hobby to do. We were in Germany at the time, so not much deer hunting going on over there, but we took a trip back to West Virginia together, and I climbed up in a deer stand, which consisted of a big old red oak tree, the crotch of a red oak tree, and a 2x4 and a railroad spike. And our camouflage was old military flight suits that we took magic markers to, and because we were broke. But anyway, that's where I started hunting at. I was 19, I think, at the time, and we eventually, both of us ended up in California. I got into doing some upland hunting, that sort of thing. And eventually I got a job in Wichita, Kansas. In 2000, I think it was, I moved to Wichita, Kansas. And I think in 96 or 97 is when they first allowed non-residents to deer hunt there. So you were just starting to hear about Kansas. I remember seeing, the guys on Realtree and a few of those TV shows out there filming, but for the most part, you didn't hear a lot about Kansas because non-residents weren't allowed to hunt out there. But here I am living in Kansas, had done some upland bird hunting, and had that one deer trip was the only time I'd ever deer hunted. I started knocking on doors, got permission. That first fall, I killed my first doe with a bow. Had never gun hunted, killed a doe with a bow. The next year I did it again. And for some dumb, ungodly reason, I don't know why, we moved. And I'd had some opportunities at some pretty good bucks. Trail cameras weren't really a thing yet, or at least they weren't for me. I was too poor for them. And when we moved to Kentucky, which is where my wife is originally from, I just fell right into hunting here and bought my first trail camera, which was back in the day was the 35 millimeter. You'd buy the roll of 36 exposures, and they ran on big D cell batteries, or the big lantern batteries. Some of the cameras used those. They were literally, trail cameras had carrying handles on them because they were so big. That's no joke. And anyway, got to running trail cameras and getting pictures of deer, and just just immediately thought I was a trophy hunter. I'd never killed a buck at all. And my first fall in Kentucky was 2002, and I'd landed a place to hunt. It was a permission place. Used my daughter of all the low down dirty tricks. I took my 2-year-old daughter with me when I knock on doors, and everybody just loved her big blue eyes. And next thing you know, I had a place to hunt. So anyway, I shot my first buck that fall. It was a pretty nice 2-year-old 10-pointer. And I say 2-year-old, I didn't know age deer back then. He was the biggest deer on the earth for me, then. Shot him with my bow. So at that point, I had 3 deer under my belt, and that buck being the first one ever. And all of my family was like, oh my God, it's the biggest deer I've ever seen. And I think eventually when I learned how to score deer, I think I scored him at like 123 or something like that, kind of deer you'd love to see get to be 5 or 6 years old nowadays, But I could not have been happier with that deer. And man, it lit a fire in my butt. I shot him on November 8th. It was the day before rifle season came in. And kind of my last hurrah, because I wasn't allowed to gun hunt this farm, which I didn't gun hunt anyway. But I had I not shot him, somebody else probably would have. Is the way everybody looks at it. But anyway, kill that deer, and I decided that I was not going to shoot another deer until I shot one bigger. And it led to, I did kill another buck a couple more years, like 2 years later in Kentucky. I was traveling back and forth out to Kansas to hunt as well. I killed a really nice buck out there in 2004. Matter of fact, it was election day, the day that George Bush got reelected. I shot him early enough, and he won by such a landslide. We were dragging him out in the broad daylight and listening to the election results on the radio as we were dragging him up the creek bank. But my buddy Dave that introduced me to hunting was actually on that trip with me and in the stand with me when I shot him. And neither of us had ever seen anything like it. He field dressed 207 pounds, was busted up on one side, would have been about 150. And prior to that, I had 2 bucks that scored like 120. So first mature buck I'd ever killed, and got me pretty addicted to hunting the rut in Kansas. And I've done that more than half of the year since. I was smart enough when I lived in Kansas to buy a lifetime hunting license while I lived out there. Yeah, and this is a great part of my history. We were so poor. I mean, like, to have extra money to spend on something like that, it just wasn't, it just wasn't feasible. We were young, I had a good job, but we had all the bills. My little girl was, a baby at the time. My wife was trying to finish up her degree, so we're putting her through school. She's working part-time, and it was just, payday to payday, barely scratching by. And I come in one day and tell her I'd bought a lifetime hunting license in Kansas. It was $250, and I bought it on quarterly payments. This is how broke I was. And it damaged our relationship for a while. I paid $25 a quarter for like the next 2 or 3 years to get that thing paid for. I wasn't even living there anymore when I got it paid off. But I go back now. I don't know what a tag and license costs for a non-resident, $500, $600, $700 probably to go out there, and it cost me $40. So it's the best investment I ever made, hardest investment I ever made. And I slept on the couch for a few nights. So anyway, that ultimately, all of that, led to me just being this whitetail addict. And fast forward, I become a police officer here in Kentucky, and my sergeant at the time was a big time hunter, and we would sit around on slow nights and daydream about a way to make it in the outdoor industry and make our living doing what we love, so we wouldn't have to go punch a clock and wear a gun belt and sweat, wearing a bulletproof vest and all that stuff. We just wanted a different kind of life. And so, he and I we both loved to turkey hunt. He and I decided to start a game call business. It was called Lost River Game Calls. This was in 2005. And we didn't know anything about making game calls, but the internet was kicking pretty good back then, and done an awful lot of searching and found some supplies and some tutorials. And pretty soon we're making turkey calls and growing a little business. And the next year, it hits me that, man, all of these companies that have a product to sell in the outdoors, they do it via television. Television back then was king. Outdoor Channel, Sportsman Channel, whatever all there was, I don't even remember. So I tried to talk my partner into us doing a television show, or at least a DVD or something, and he didn't want to spend the money. So I got on eBay and bought a used Canon camera, XL1 or XL2 or something. I don't even remember what it was. Pretty good sized darn camera. I know that, compared to what guys use now. And started filming hunts, started filming my other buddies, and traveling some and filming, and ended up producing a local TV show here that aired on local TV. That eventually turned into a group of my buddies and I competing on a show called Hunting for the Dream. We were season 1 winners of Hunting for the Dream, which, when we first entered that program, we were supposed to win a season of airtime on the Sportsman Channel. Well, they pulled the rug out from under us after we won and gave us like Fox Sports 2 or something. And it was regional, like very few people even got it that I knew. But we did that, and that led to a lot of things, man. I started selling trail cameras. I was a trail camera addict. I started selling trail cameras as a side business, and turned that into a pretty successful business. Eventually went to work for a company most people have heard of, Covert Scouting Cameras. When I started with them, it was actually, the company's called Duck Lick Creek Trading Company. I convinced him to change the name to something a little more easy to say, and was there at the very, very beginning. Matter of fact, I was his number one dealer for quite some time, and like an idiot, I convinced him to start branching out and bringing in other dealers. And pretty soon I worked myself right out of a job, because I had a corner on the market, and now you starting to see them in box stores and things like that, and I had to go to work for him. And I worked off and on with him for about 3 years, and then left there and came to Whitetail Properties, and I've been here ever since. So yeah, wow. That's it in a nutshell, man. Kind of a windy road, but here we are.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. What part of Kentucky are you in?
I live in Bowling Green. Currently, I live in Bowling Green. Yep.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Sacramento, Kentucky?
Yeah, is that Western? Is that Western Kentucky?
Yeah, a little more west of you.
Yep.
Yeah, not many people have heard of there. My wife's whole family's from there.
Do you know what?
It's a small little town down there.
Do you know what county that is?
Ooh, I do not. I can figure that out though.
I've heard of it. I know it's Western Kentucky, but I can't remember. So me and some buddies, other Whitetail Properties agents, we've got a big farm over in Western Kentucky. So I'm getting more and more familiar with the towns over there.
McLean County. McLean.
Okay, that's right outside of like Owensboro. That McLean borders Davis County. So yeah, high dollar ground over there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Apparently, we always ask anybody from Kentucky if they've heard of Sacramento, and it's always no.
Okay, all right.
It's pretty interesting. No, that's quite the background, though. My first cameras, I think, were covert cameras too. And we're going back probably 10, 15 years now. They were my first cell cameras too, but I remember the ones that were kind of shaped like a keyhole almost.
Oh yeah. That was called the CA 3.0.
Yes, sir.
It's I've got a great story to tell you about the name of that camera, but we will not do it on the air.
Yeah. I love it.
No, that's quite the background, man. You've been around the industry for sure. In Kansas, I mean, I've been hearing about Kansas in our little group for probably no more than 6, 7, 8 years. Seems to be like blowing up, right? Like now you got to get a point or wait every other year, maybe. I've never hunted there, but it's been getting really popular the last few years. Has that affected you going out there since you've been going out there forever? Are you seeing a lot more
Yeah.
guys out there?
So years ago, when I first started, really seriously deer hunting out there, it was after I left. I bird hunted more than I deer hunted when I lived there. And when I started traveling back out there, it was so easy to get access to really prime ground. Now I was very much an inexperienced deer hunter, so I wasn't killing giants like a lot of guys were out there. I was killing good deer. I've got an extremely good track record for actually killing deer out there. But getting access was easy. All you did is knock on a door, sit down at a cafe, mention that you like to deer hunt, and the thing I heard so many times was kill as many as you can and take the big one home with you, which obviously I'm not going to do that. But the farmers hated the deer and the turkeys. It was the same way with turkey hunting. But nobody did it. Those farmers out there are scratching out a living in a dust bowl. It is hard living in Kansas. And it's, they looked at them as a pest. Well, fast forward 15 or so years, and we all know what's become of the hunting industry. It's a money game now, and it gets worse every year. So with that came, a little more protective, and pretty soon all the places I had to hunt for free were no longer available. They were leased by outfitters. They were leased by, guys from out of town. And it just become really difficult to get permission. And if I really struggle paying for a place to hunt, and I'm in the business, I own my own land here, but it's a struggle for me to lease ground. And I guess it's because of what I do for a living, and I realize that the way to build wealth is not paying someone else for access to hunt their land. All right. That's the way they build wealth. And I'm not saying that's going to make them wealthy, but that's one of many ways that you can monetize your asset, which is that land. And I just can't do it. I just can't I do it. Unfortunately I do it. I've got a couple leases in Kentucky, and some of them I never even step foot on, but I lease them with buddies, and we like to get together and have a good time. And, yeah, I've got a lease in Ohio now, and which sucks. It's the worst farm I've ever been on in my life. I mean, it is literally terrible. It's not every tree in Ohio has a booner behind it. Same with Kansas. But anyway, I struggle making a lease payment, just because I've always told myself if I'm going to pay someone's mortgage, it's going to be my own. So anyway, yeah, I quit hunting out there for a long time because of that. And one of my really good clients called me up about 6 years ago and said, I hadn't hunted out there in 4 or 5 years, and says, hey, what do you know about Kansas? I said, a lot. I lived out there. I've hunted out there for 20 years. And he said, I'm thinking about buying a farm out there. This guy doesn't hunt. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. He's in the oil industry and was looking for an oil investment. And he said, I'm going to send you a link over to see what you think about it. I looked at it, immediately fell in love with the farm. It checked all his boxes, and it looked like an awesome farm. I said, all right, when do you want to go look at it? I'm flying into Wichita, and we'll go look at it. So flew out there, went, looked at it, took me a couple Spartan cameras with me, and hung those cameras up, and he decided he was going to buy it. And yeah, been hunting out there now I've hunted out there for 6 years, and I've killed $5 on that farm in 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's such a hit or miss property. I love telling this story because it makes me sound like I'm good. I'm not, by the way. But the first year, that year he bought it, that was in like September whenever we flew out there and looked at it. And I went back out October. I think it was October 28th. I left here way over in the morning and drove all the way out there. It's about 11.5 hour drive for me. I got there at about 10 or 11 o'clock. I climbed up in a tree, hung a stand. I moved to another location, hung a stand there, and literally flipped a coin as to which stand I'm going to get in. It was a northwest wind that day, and I had gotten actually on the way out there, the deer I was going out there after, I got a picture of him in daylight that morning. and I had a camera hung either side of him. So I knew kind of closely where he'd be bedded at. And they had gotten a bunch of rain. I'm talking like 6 inches of rain that day before, and all the creeks looked like whitewater rapids. I mean, the creeks are right up at the brim. And I hung on the edge of a creek, a little creek pinch along the edge of the field where the creek pressed the timber down real tight to the field edge so I could watch the field and kind of observe while I'm also hunting over a really good funnel. And I saw 7 does kind of early on come busting out of the woods where I'd hung that other stand. I think they probably smelled where I had been in there, and they come busting out, cut across the corner of the field, and go to the neighbors. I'm like, well, that kind of sucks, you know. And about 30 minutes later, broad daylight, I heard a twig snap, and just as I look over my shoulder, the buck that I'm after is coming into view, and I stand up in one motion, pick my bow up. Deer out there are dumb. I'm just going to tell you, you can get away with that. I was about 7 feet off the ground, and all that movement, that deer never lifted his head up. He stops and works a scrape, and I zip one through him at about 10 steps. And he jumped that flipping creek. I mean, that creek is as wide as a 2-lane road right there, and he cleared it. His back feet hit the water on the other side. And I was so unfamiliar with this property, I had no idea how to even get to where he went. I just knew that I couldn't cross the creek. So I decided to wait till in the morning because I was afraid to come in from the direction he ran to for, what if I didn't make a good shot? I felt like it was a great shot. But anyway, I went in the next morning right after daylight and found him. He had made it about 30 yards and fell dead. If I would have got over there and looked, I would have seen him laying there on the ground. He was that close. Perfect shot. Biggest bodied deer I've ever killed. And his right side, I'd turn around and look at him, make sure I'm telling you the right side. His right side scores 88 inches. So double that and add a 16-inch spread. He would have been in the 190s. His left side is just a big fork with some junk coming off of it. But 6.5-year-old buck, and biggest single antler that I've ever killed by far. So, and I did it in just a couple of hours. So that was pretty awesome.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I want to circle back to that lifetime hunting license that you bought in Kansas.
Yeah, everybody wants to know about those.
Is it so? Are you guaranteed a license every year then, or do you have to go in for like a draw and on that system? How does it all work for that?
So I'm treated just as a resident is, and the rules are vastly different for residents and non-residents. So non-resident have to put in for a draw. They also put in for a specific weapon. In other words, when you get a buck tag in Kansas, you've got to decide up front, am I going to muzzleloader hunt? Am I going to bow hunt? Or I'm going to gun hunt? The difference in a resident is I can get, and I forget if it's a whitetail. I think it's a whitetail, any whitetail tag. I think I'm trying to go off memory because I've only ever whitetail hunted out there, but they have mule deer as well. But I can hunt. And as a non-resident, you have to apply for a zone as well. So there's multiple zones. So you're specifically you're restricted to that zone you put in for. But as a resident, I can hunt statewide, any weapon, any season. So sometimes if I go out there and I'm unsuccessful bow hunting, I can go back out during rifle season and try to fill that tag. I've only done that once. I've gun hunted out there twice. But a few years ago, I went out and I just had terrible luck. Every buck I had on camera, I passed on in the first couple of days of hunting. And I just wasn't feeling it. So I packed up and headed back home. This farm in particular gets a lot of good deer move in, the last week or so of November. It's unlike a lot of farms where I see my deer starting to move in about the third week of October. These deer move in about the third week of November, and the rut is kind of winding down then. I knew I'd have some good deer show up right before rifle season. So sure enough, on the 26th or 27th, I had 2 shooters show up, and I drove out on gun season and shot one of them opening morning of rifle season.
Nothing wrong with that, man. I want to get out there. I'm going to go out there hopefully in the next year or two, but I'm going to have to, like you said, I have to play the draw game, and then I got to pick my weapon game. That early muzzle loader with a December rifle backup sounds kind of fun. I don't know, but sounds great. Sounds like it's a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've never hunted that early muzzle loader. If you've got crops, it can be pretty good. if you've got milo or soybeans, it can be pretty good. I don't know that it's so damn hot out there. I mean, it is so hot, especially in that September season. I just don't enjoy hunting then. But you're right, because if you don't kill one during early muzzleloader, you can go out and muzzleload hunt during their rifle season and feel that tagged in. And that's a great season. If you've got a food source and you still get a little bit of rutting action as well. But if you've got a food source, man, and by food source, it can be a feeder. That's the 2 bucks I've shot with guns out there have been near a feeder, which I have crops as well, but those feeders kind of make the scouting really easy,
Sure. Well, you mentioned something you own ground in Kentucky, or you own your own farm. Is that in Kentucky? And let's hear about that farm. Like, what's it look like? How's it set up? And I want to get into that side of the project here.
Yeah, so I've owned several farms over the years. And a couple of years ago, I had a really nice farm, 250 something acres, and kind of got in a position where I wanted to invest my money somewhere else. So I sold that place. And I've kind of been keeping my eye out for the right opportunity. We really wanted to live on a property. We were going to build on that other farm, and that just seemed that seemed so unattainable because of how big the farm was. To make the mortgage payment on the farm and to build a house, prices were just going through the roof at the same time, and the farm had gone up in value so much. It just didn't make sense. So I freed up that cash and just waited, biding my time. And then just back in like August, actually in July, I had a client of mine reach out to me about selling the property that I had sold her and her husband 12 years before. He had recently passed away, and she was moving closer to family. The place had a house on it. It was 87 acres total with an older house, about 2,000 square foot home. Pretty dated. Needs some TLC. And anyway, it's one of those things like, there's perks to this job. And I've come across some great deals, but I have a real responsibility to my clients. And my goal is always to get that client the most money possible. And when I done my due diligence on this property and I laid the price out to her, I'm probably going into more detail about my private stuff than I should, but I want to lay this out there because real estate agents have a bad reputation of taking advantage of people. And that was the last thing that I'm interested in doing just to get a piece of land, So long story, I done my due diligence, and I came up with what I felt like was the market value of this property. And she argued with me. She's like, "No, I don't think it'll ever bring that much money." I said, "Well, I've been doing this a long time, and I feel confident that it will." And she's like, "Well, I'm not gonna ask anyone to give me that much for it. This is the number that we'll list it at." And immediately, I'm like, "Okay, this is not the farm that I really want." But it's a nice place, and it immediately allows me to afford to be able to live on the farm. There's a house there, because around here, I live in Bowling Green, third largest city in the state. If I'm going to live on property, I've got to get outside of the county, and this is just outside of the county, but land values are still so high. I can't afford to buy 80 or 90 acres with a house on it. I just can't. And so I told her, I said, "Well, okay, if that's what you insist on doing, I'm interested in it." And the next words out of her mouth was, "Well, I'm not going to charge you that." So I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to make you an offer. You tell me what you want for it, and that's what I'll pay. But know that I'm willing to pay this." And so, long story, we got the deal done. She gave me the time that I needed to get my ducks in a row. We closed on it. Middle of October. We were trying to hit her husband's birthday, and we missed that by just a little bit of time. But sweet lady, I love her to pieces, and she's made my dreams come true. Literally to be able to get out of this stupid subdivision that I live in, and be able to shoot a gun off my back porch if I want to. And matter of fact, I ran a trap line this morning, and I caught 2 coons within sight of my house. How cool is that? But anyway, so that's the farm. It's 87 acres. The house sits on about 4 acres. It's across the road from the bulk of the farm. And we eventually plan to build a house on that other side of the road. Don't know what we'll do with that house yet, but eventually we do plan on building. It's a different farm, and it offers some really unique It's going to be a tough one. First of all, we got hit with blue tongue this year pretty darn bad. And while I've only found one dead deer on the property. Um, there are no deer. It is scary how few deer there are. I will get an occasional. I've got 2 feeders up. I've been feeding since August. I think I've put first corn out. Just trying to get pictures of deer, and I'll get a picture of a deer or two every couple of days.
Wow.
But it's pretty, and not much sign. A few rubs around, a few scrapes around. I did get a visit from a really nice buck during the rut. Probably a deer in the 140s, I would say, 10-pointer, really nice buck. And I had another 3-year-old deer and a couple of spikes. That's it, man. I'm not used to that. I'm used to being overrun by deer, and this thing has no deer. The first farm I ever bought was very similar. Had no deer on it when I first got it. Matter of fact, corn. I put corn out to try to get pictures. It rot on the ground before the crows and the coons ate more of it than the deer. There just weren't any. Now the rut it picked up really good, but I transformed that farm in a year's time. And matter of fact, I went from getting same thing, a couple of does here or there, to the next year I had 2 cellular cameras going in the fall. And at one point in time, I had like 27 deer in front of two different, like 12 over here and 15 over here on 2 cameras, and that happened in a year's time. So I'm hoping I can do the same thing on this property. I don't necessarily need that many deer, but certainly like some better quality bucks and a few more deer to feel like I can actually go out and shoot a doe for meat and that sort of thing, and not be damaging it. So a lot of big plans. Matter of fact, I was talking to NRCS lady today. We're working on an equip contract and possibly what's it called? CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program.
Yeah.
So looking to get some help from Uncle Sam. He's got all that money available, and I'll gladly take some of it. As I would advise all of your listeners to listen to, I think the deadline to apply is the 15th of this month. So if anybody's interested in equip, I don't know how soon this will get out there, but it's 3 days from now that deadline hits. So I've done those projects in the past, and they're really good. So.
No, that's great advice there. I know, like you said, you might not have any deer yet, but and I know we're going to change that, and your projects are going to turn that right around. So I have confidence in you, Dave, and I think, I gotta go set up a FSA account. Actually, my NRCS agent said I need to do a new one of those. So yeah, you just reminded me of something I have to get done this week. What about your farm that you're on now? Is it mostly timber? Is there any fields? Is there a big draw in the middle? When you say it's challenging, I'm trying to picture that in my head.
So it's in Edmonson County, Kentucky. 50,000 acres of Edmonson County, Kentucky is Mammoth Cave National Park. All right. It's the largest underground cave system in the world. I don't even know how many, it's hundreds of miles of caves they have mapped out under the ground. Well, you can imagine, when you talk about that sort of topography, the challenges that can happen. So this farm, I'll give you the breakdown. There's 4 acres on my side of the road where we're going to live at. It's all woods, except for my yard, of course, a little small yard. Everything else across the road is like 82 point something acres. There's about a 5 or 6 acre field. And then all the rest of it is woods. And I'm up high on the ridge overlooking a big, vast holler on either side. We call them hollers here, draws, valleys, whatever you want to call them. They're big. And the whole, I'm not even familiar enough with the farm yet to tell you what the boundary is. I think it's the eastern boundary. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the eastern boundary is a creek, really nice year-round creek. It's my favorite part of the whole farm, is having that creek that flows the entire length of my property. And between that field and the creek are 2 very distinct bluff lines from where that creek used to be much, much, much larger. And by bluff lines, I mean sheer drop-offs to your death. 70, 80 feet type bluffs.
Wow.
And there's only one way to get from the top to the bottom. There's one gap in that bluff that allows me to drive a vehicle. Now, there's some places I can kind of scale the wall, but guess what? Deer don't do. Deer don't scale walls. And I'll be honest, when I first looked at the farm and I realized that's the one way for deer to come up and down, I thought, man, this is going to be a kill funnel like none other. Very few deer walk through there. Very few. I don't know how they're getting up and down yet. I'm not familiar enough yet with it. I'm hoping I'll get enough time. We're doing a forest management plan, and I'm hoping I get enough time to learn the property a little more to determine where I want to put my bedding cuts and things like that before they just throw a contract my way, so that I do it right the first time. But that's the biggest challenge. Is it's almost like having three very distinct properties that are split by a fence, if that makes sense. They're like long funnels. You've got these benches that run the length, but the deer can't go up or down. So it makes it really challenging. I do think there's a couple spots that I've picked out that ought to be really fun gun hunting spots where I can sit on the edge of a bluff overlooking a creek bottom and have a nice long range shot. But with those bluffs and those big steep walls come very challenging winds. And I'll be honest, I'm not used to hunting in that type of topography. So I'm probably going to have a lot of frustration ahead of me, trying to learn how to hunt the wind in those areas, and probably be more morning hunting than I'm typically used to as well. I morning hunt during the rut, but that's about it. I've got a feeling this is going to be a morning only type farm where you can hunt the thermals, except for I'll have a food plot out in the field. I'll be able to bow hunt there. I feel like, pretty easily, but man, it's going to be a struggle. And I hope I'm up for the challenge. I turned 50 this past year and kind of going through a midlife crisis and looking for ways to challenge myself, and I just hope that this one ain't the end of me. So we'll see.
Packermax.com. Have you guys used a Packermax cultipacker yet? I know that being the first partner of the Habitat podcast, I've been using one for over 5 years now. Guys, cultipacking is one of the highest rated and highly overlooked part of your food plot system. It helps maintain soil moisture, keeps it in the soil, improves seed to soil contact when you press those seeds into the dirt, and ensures superior seed germination for all seed types. I do not plant a food plot without cultipacking. Guys, Packer Max and Lincoln over there, great company, great people. They have 5 different cultipackers available at packermax.com, and they also have a roller crimper combo attachment for the Packer Max. So that's what I use. I can crimp, I can pack, I can do everything with my Packer Max crimper combo. They even came out with a 6-foot unit at packermax.com. Guys, be sure to utilize this piece of equipment when you're planting food plots to get the best success in your seed germination. Check them out, packermax.com. We have a code HPC25 at checkout to save money.
Hey guys, Al here, Vitalized Seed. I hope you all are doing well. So we got a lot of new things happening at Vitalize this year, and I wanted to highlight some of those. First off, we got a brand new website. We just added a chat feature to that website so you can get your answers to your questions in real time or as fast as possible. Those actually come directly to us, so we can answer those questions, as well as has some auto answer features for those frequently asked questions. So trying to further increase the customer service that we offer. Number 2 is we are offering bundles now. So we got a lot of questions about people trying to piecemeal things together. So we took the guesswork out of it for you. You want a fertility bundle? Add that to your cart, and it gives you all of our natural fertility products in one place. We also are adding bulk pricing. So been asked about this in the past, and we've done some, kind of one-off things. But for those people who are buying, 5, 10, 15 acres, depending on the product, we're going to be offering some bulk pricing options for that. So right now we got that up on Nitro Boost. We also are going to have that up for the Clover, Chicory, and Oats offering, and might expand that to other offerings as well. Other things are new products. So we got our annual Clover. That's a fantastic product for frost seeding and also for this early spring, especially for those who still want to plant Nitro Boost. They want to get that annual Clover established. You could go in and drill your Nitro Boost right through it, broadcast through it, mow it off, spray it off, etc. We got our premium Clover Plus. I'm using that on all my logging trails. That's a fantastic product. I'm also using that often with our Clover, Chicory, and Oats mix. So I might use Clover, Chicory, Oats in the first year on my logging trails like I did last fall. Let those oats come in, they'll die off, and then I can frost seed my premium Clover and Chicory over top of those trails now. So those are areas where I want a perennial crop growing. So I'm using that mix. And then we added our brassica mix as well. We, of course, have our seed feed and seed armor. Those are selling fantastic, and various other products, guys. So please check us out at vitalizeseed.com. We sure do appreciate you, and we're looking forward to a fantastic 2025.
A couple things are coming to my mind. It sounds like my up north farm where it's like it's a huge valley. So the wind is insanely tough. So I'm thinking box blinds. I hate hunting in blinds, but seal it up, to get down there. And when you crest the top of that bluff and head down to the valley, it's like the whole world knows you're there. That's why it's
That's
a couple
exactly
of challenging pieces that I have a feeling you're going to see or already seeing because I'm doing the same thing. And it's like, how do you get by that? I know the wind's got to exit there somewhere, but at the same time, that's not where your access is. It can be tough, but it sounds gorgeous, man. I see your videos that you're always posting videos of you walking the trap line and the creek and whatnot. It looks beautiful.
It is a beautiful property, and if nothing else, I'll be able to enjoy that.
Yeah,
I do feel like eventually I'll turn it into a good hunting property. I know this; it's going to be a freaking awesome turkey hunting farm. It is loaded with turkeys, and in Kentucky, we can't say that a whole lot about very many of our properties because our turkey numbers are down so much as they are across a lot of the country. But there's no shortage of turkeys. I mean, I've been to areas that have bigger flocks, but I started checking my traps a little later in the morning because I've got some literally right under a roost tree where a half a dozen gobblers have been roosting. And I bumped them off the roost twice, getting in there early, and I'm like, man, I don't want to disturb them. I'm gonna start giving them plenty of time to get out of there before I go in and start checking these traps. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I love the turkey hunt, so I'm excited about that. And the turkey hunt is going to be challenging as well because again, guaranteed the birds are going to be on one bench and I'm going to be on the other. And I joked with a buddy of mine. I said, I'm going to put up some zip lines so that I can just zip off the side of the bluff to get down there to them. So, but that's the kind of terrain that it is. And what's cool about that though, is, I know there's some Native American history there. There just has to be, because there's too many rock shelters and things like that where they could get out of the weather and things. So I'm excited about that. I'm a very much an amateur arrowhead hunter, and amateur meaning I have very little experience actually finding them, but I love looking for them. So, but I feel like I'll find some on this farm, and it's just there's a spot where, like this morning, I went in there, and I always have to go to the spot every time I go by, and it's just a little trickle of water running over top of a bluff, and it just rains down, 70 or 80 feet to the bottom, and just sheer drop off, and it's just kind of cool to sit there and listen to the water run over top of that rock. So, yeah, that's those are the things that I dreamed about, before I ever owned property, and now owning your own place, and realizing, yep, the dream was absolutely real. This really does exist, and it's all mine.
I love it. I love it, man. That's amazing. When you're thinking about Kentucky deer habitat, where you're at, we mentioned the topography. What else is unique compared to other states? I know there's big timber, you got a field, but is there anything else more unique about Kentucky type habitat where you're at compared to maybe Michigan or Iowa or anything else?
So the thing about Kentucky is practically every county has major changes in topography. Obviously in Eastern Kentucky, you've got, the Appalachian Mountains, which is legit mountain terrain. But you get over here by me, we're not in the mountains, yet we have some really rugged terrain like this in the Evans County. But then you also have, you drive 30 minutes away and you've got big, flat, wide open river bottoms that stretch forever. It's like visiting Colorado and Kansas, and obviously those are right next to. Let me use a different scenario: Montana and Iowa. It's like that difference. Not that extreme, I don't guess, but it is very unique in that aspect. I don't think I've been anywhere where the terrain changes as quickly and as often as it does in Kentucky, and it adds its own unique challenges. My success of killing big deer in Kentucky is pretty pitiful, pretty pitiful, especially when you look at my wall and I say, yep, Ohio, Kansas, Illinois, Ohio, Kansas, and there's one from Kentucky. I've lived here all these years. It's hard hunting here, man. And I'm not a big fan of baiting. I do it. I call it defensive baiting because everybody here hunts over a corn pile. And if you don't have it out, you're not going to have deer. It's just, and I hate to say it that way. If I could this is going to get me a lot of hate. If I could snap my fingers and make baiting go away, I would absolutely do it. And for years, I didn't bait in Kansas. I mean, every deer I've killed in Kansas up until this new farm, I never baited. But what I learned, and I know I'm getting off the topic of your question, but what I learned out there was if I didn't have corn on the farm, my neighbors are going to kill them all during gun season. And I went through that for a few years, and now I can hold some deer because I've got 1,000-pound feeders out there sprinkling corn out at the right time because I've got the best cover around. And my neighbors literally have feeders right up on my property line in all directions, except to the north. The guys to the north seem to be pretty good. There's a fella across the road to the east of me that has a feeder inside of the road. The main, I mean, it's a dirt road because all the roads in Kansas are dirt roads. But I mean, you could shoot a deer with a bow from the road at his feeder, and the trail coming out of my property to him is hammered down because they're going over there to that feed. And so I'm like, man, if I'm going to ever get some deer to some older age classes, I'm going to have to, because those are they. Man, a lot of guys will go out of state to deer hunt. They go to Kansas, they go to Iowa, they go to wherever to kill the biggest deer of their life. And they get there, and on the third or fourth day of the hunt, they've seen some good deer. But the first 130 walks by them, they pop them. You know what I mean? Because that's the biggest deer of their life, and they miss the whole point of going out there. The whole point of going out there is killing a big, mature buck, And some of the deer I've killed recently, like the deer I killed last year was, I don't even know what he scores. He's not a deer that I'm going to score, but he was 7.5 years old. I had so many encounters with that buck. He was like my best friend. I'd go out there expecting for him to come walking by me, and anyway, but so I could get deer old, but I wasn't getting them big. And I thought, man, if I put some feeders in here, we killed a 176 off the farm this year, and I think he might have only been 4 years old. He definitely was not over 5, but he was 176 and change. I think he had 18 scoreable points, blew up from last year. I killed a deer that was right at 150, 5-year-old buck. I had pictures of him last year, borderline shooter. My goal out there is to kill a 5-year-old, if at all possible. But my buddy had killed that deer. It was his biggest buck ever, and I know I got one neighbor out there that's probably upset that we shot that buck because he was 4, maybe 5, but it is what it is. But the guys that go out there and shoot the first 2 or 3-year-old 120-inch, 130-inch deer that goes by them, more power to them. They shoot what they want. It's their tag. But why did you drive all the way to Kansas? It was not to shoot a 120 or 130. It just, not a 2 or 3-year-old anyway. It'd be different if he's 6 or 7 years old. But man, just let them get some size on them. We're probably gonna get some hate for me saying all that. But I don't care. I'm over at this point. But and I'm never gonna criticize a guy to for doing that. Do it. I'm speaking in general terms. I could name names, but I'm not going to. You know what I mean? Like I'm never gonna get on Facebook and tell a guy you should have let that deer go. I can think it to myself, but that's not the right way to do it either. It's not very inviting. I just kind of wish that people would grow, and learn that, hey, I don't have to kill a buck. And that's the mentality that gets me is the guys that just want to kill a buck, like, well, it was a buck, yeah. And, so are we going to talk about my buck this year in Kentucky now that I've done all that?
I'd love to. Which farm where did you hunt on? One of your leases, your farm at home?
So, me and some buddies, there's 7 or 8 of us own about 1,000. We own about 1,000 acres in Western Kentucky. We've been investing in building to this point. We call it the Kentucky Buck Factory. And we have some really stringent rules. extremely strange. Have you seen this? Have you seen this, Bob? You say you follow me.
I've seen you talk about it. I can't say like I've seen an aerial and know exactly what it looks like, but I've seen you talk about it. What's a
Have you
Kentucky
seen
Buck
the
Factory?
Have you seen the deer that I'm talking about that I killed this year?
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up just so
All
I
right.
know.
Okay, so anyway, we have some extremely stringent rules, and it's all in good fun. But we want to grow the biggest deer possible, and our goal is to let our best quality bucks reach the fullest maturity. And if we deem a deer is 4 or 5 years old, and he's not going, we don't think he's going to ever reach that, we put them on the hit list. You don't shoot a deer unless he's on the hit list. All right, just doesn't happen. And if you do, there are severe penalties that come with this, and we have what we call the wall of shame. And if you shoot a buck, an antlered buck that does not meet our standards, meaning he has to be at least 4.5 years old, or be on the hit list. Okay, if you shoot a deer that's not, then you go on the wall of shame. You have to pose for this ridiculous picture, and you lose your chance to shoot a buck the following year. All right. Now, we've had this farm for 4 years now, and we have a buck we call Spook that is pushing 160 this year as a 4 or 5-year-old, and we've let him go. He will be our first what we consider trophy deer next year, meaning he's fully mature and he's a stud. And if he makes it, he's got some injuries right now, so we're hoping he survives. But anyway, so opening day of bow season. I am not buck hunting. We also have a doe contest. All right. So this doe contest is very important. We have so many deer. We have to kill a bunch of does. And that's a lot of work. We've got a great cleaning facility there that we can clean our deer in, but we still have to kill a bunch of does. And my goal is to start early because the guy that kills the most does gets his choice of stands one day the following year. The guy that kills the biggest doe gets his choice of stands the following year on one day. So that's opening weekend of bow season next year that I would have to try to hunt Spook. All right. So long story short, my day doesn't start out real good. I'm going into the blind. I'm going to a blind to hunt over a food plot. And I don't know if I looked at the weather app wrong or if the weather was just wrong, but I get there and the wind is 180 degrees opposite of what I thought it was. So now I've got to drive, and I've driven a mile to get there. All right. So now I've got to drive a mile back. I'm starting to push timing, and there's a stand on a feeder right behind our shop. And I'm going to get up in that stand. And I've got a little history with that stand. It happens to be directly in line with our archery target. And last year, I'm there bow hunting, and one of the guys comes in to sight his bow in, doesn't know I'm there hunting, and misses this. It's a giant, like a range target. It's like 4 foot by 4 foot. He skips an arrow off the top of it, and it literally bangs off the tree that I'm sitting in. And I'm now ruining my hunt, screaming at him because I see him knocking another arrow. All right. And I'm looking at it through the binoculars. I'm hollering at him to stop. So that's my first bad experience with this stand. So here it is, second year. I'm getting up in the stand opening day. And I'm sitting there, and a couple of does come in. They're coming up the hill. They're headed to that feeder. And I don't have my rangefinder out yet. It's really early, and I was a little leery of just missing, not able to judge the yardage really accurately. I thought, man, I'm gonna let them go. I'm gonna try to get my rangefinder out. I start digging through my backpack to get my rangefinder out. I finally get it out. And as I'm getting it out, they realize something's up and they run back down the hill. And I thought to myself, no big deal. They're does. They're dumb. They will come back. And this time they'll come back downwind of me and I'll just shoot them then, and they'll be much closer most likely because they know where the movement come from. They'll be back. It's happened too many times. So I'm sitting there, about 30 minutes goes by, and I hear something behind me directly downwind. And I turn and I see what I think is a doe standing in the woods 15 yards of me. I don't pick my binoculars up or anything. My thought immediately is, there's those two does. They're back. I've got to get in a really contorted position to make the shot. And I thought, if it doesn't feel good, I'm not even gonna shoot. Well, when I draw back and I settle in, man, I was rock solid. I mean, I'm as confident in making this shot as any shot I've ever made. And this is doe number 1 for Mr. Dave Skinner this year. I'm going to be up on everybody. Zip the arrow, deer ducks, hits the ground, balls out loud. I've spine shot, and it makes this god-awful cry out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world just happened? Well, I'm sitting there and I realize I didn't hear the other deer run off. So my instinct immediately is knock another arrow and try to shoot the other one too. All right, because I can kill all I want, all the does I want, and one day I can kill them in a zone 1 in Kentucky. There's no other doe. Well, that's kind of weird because when she came in earlier, she had another doe with her, and about that time, it makes that noise again, and I'm like, that's not a doe bleat. That's a lot deeper than a doe would make a sound, and it hits me. My God, please don't be a buck. And I get down out of that ladder stand faster than you can imagine, literally carrying my bow with me with an arrow knocked, by the way, like an idiot. And I go walking up on that thing, and he's got 3-inch spikes that lay out with his ears. Even if I would have looked, I don't think I would have ever seen them. And I immediately start having thoughts of bad things. I mean, I'm up on the ridge top, and there's a big, deep holler right there. I can grab that deer by the leg and drag him down in that holler. The coons and the possums and the coyotes will make waste of him. No one will know the difference until shed season, and then someone will just say, hey, look, here's a little deer dead down here. All of that is rolling through my brain. That's the bad devil. I immediately get my phone out of my pocket and I check him in as a buck right there while I'm standing over him, because I'm like, I'm not going to get back because someone will try to talk me into doing the wrong thing, or I'll talk myself into doing the wrong thing. So I check him in as a buck. I literally grab him by one leg. I've got my bow in my backpack. My backpack's on, my bow's in one hand. I literally drag his little skinny butt up that hill with one hand and go back and get a buggy, load him up. And I've got him cleaned and nearly processed by the time everybody else gets out of the woods. And there's his head laying there with those little teeny antlers. And there was a lot of ribbing that went on. And anyway, so that's my buck for the year in Kentucky. So as I tell everybody on there, they need to hold out and pass and shoot older bucks. Yet I'm the guy that shot the 1.5-year-old spike this year. So yeah, mistakes.
I see it. It's got nice velvet antlers on it too.
Yep, full velvet. That's my second ever velvet buck. Yep, sure enough. Yep.
What do you think that deer scores?
Well, we actually put the tape on him. He was 8.5 inches, not counting inside spread. I'm just kidding. We did not measure him, but I would imagine he's somewhere in that neighborhood because his mass can't be much more than about 3/4 of an inch. Times 4 or times 8. I don't know. He might break 20 inches. I don't know. I got a feeling those antlers are going to pop back up at some point in time. I don't know what happened to them, but I have a feeling they're going to resurface, and we may get a chance to score them. I'm not sure, but yeah, pretty embarrassing.
Congrats on that, Dave. The only reason I'm laughing so hard is because I did the exact same thing in West Virginia this year. So,
oh no,
on our Patreon hunt, and it was the last night, and I'd missed a doe that morning. This one comes in. Sure enough, it was like a button on one side, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches on the other, and I'm still getting crap for it. So, I hear you, buddy. I checked it as a buck. It's how it goes, and I'm looking at your deer right now thinking just West Virginia's hit me right in the face. Like I just did this. So happens to the best of us, I guess.
Man, I've had so much fun out of that though. And I about once a week, even still, that happened months ago. And about once a week still, I get a funny text from one of my buddies, and everyone shares all these funny reels and stuff about it. And I posted it on social media, to say, hey, here's what happened to my dumb butt, be a little smarter. But I'm gonna tell you what, it has made doe hunting at the buck factory a nightmare. I mean, it's made it a nightmare. And so many times I've had does because we still got to kill the does, and we have a penalty, a $500 doe penalty if you don't kill 2 does. That's $500 a piece. And I got so disgusted after shooting that thing that I hardly hunted in Kentucky this year. I killed a nice buck in Kansas, but I hardly hunted. And I realized get down to late muzzleloader season, I haven't killed my 2 does over there. And I went over for 3 days to hunt. And the first 2 days, I wasn't seeing does, or if I did, it was so late I couldn't see them well enough to make a confident decision that it wasn't a buck. And I mean confident like 110%. There's no guessing now. And so I was looking at costing me $1,000 for not killing my 2 does. And thank God, my last evening there hunting, I had a couple of does come out, and I was able, with a muzzleloader, had 3 does come in the field and managed to kill 2 of them with a muzzleloader. Now that's
nice.
One of them was 6 months old, so it's not all that difficult to fool one of those. So You kill in that situation. You kill the big one first, and then kill the little one after because they have no idea what to do. So worked out pretty good in my favor. But anyway,
no, that's great. That's great. Is there a law in Kentucky? In Michigan, we have it where if a deer's spikes are not longer than 3 inches, it's classified as a doe.
yeah,
You
not
can
the
still
case
tuck it
here.
in with a buck if you want, or I think you still can. But yeah, which is interesting. I don't know. I just didn't know if you had that or not.
No, we don't. We if it's got a visible antler, when we first it used to the law has changed some, but I looked it back up and I don't remember exactly the wording, but after I'd already checked it in as a buck, I had so many people say that, well, if it's not 3 inches long, well, that's not the way it is. There's no measurement like that here. And it's a buck. So that's what I checked it in at. But here it's a visible antler. So if and I think it even says a visible antler above the hairline, meaning that if it's a button buck and he truly is a button buck, that is counted as an antlerless deer. But if he's got an antler that's above the hairline, and man, we have a bunch of them. I mean, our property over there is getting better. We ever want to talk habitat, we can talk some real habitat projects over there because we've done some big ones and we've got a lot more big ones to do. But that farm has changed. It's not even recognizable for what it was when we bought it 3 or 4 years. We bought it in 2022, and it isn't even recognizable anymore. We've done over 150 acres in clear cuts. And we just this year, we have opened up right at 30 acres of those clear cuts, turned those into food plots. And some of them are going to be managed as kind of early succession areas because that end of the farm where most of that was all big timber. And I say big timber, some of the worst timber I've ever seen in my life, just high graded over the years, and a lot of creek bottom type stuff where it's just lower quality type timber, almost no oak. We had about 100 acres of planted pine plantations where the farm used to belong to a paper mill. Mature pines all for nothing. So those suckers disappeared. And now we've got all these big clear cuts that are, they've had one full growing season on them now. Getting ready to start doing some burns in those, try to set things back and maintain it that way. We're going to have to do some herbicide applications with the drone because there's still some scrags and, scraggle trees hanging here and there, but we're going to nuke them and get it literally started over from nothing. It will be the truest sense of early succession because there ain't going to be anything alive there. And a lot of invasive control we still have to do. But yeah, it's a night and day different farm from what it was in 2022 when we bought it.
That's awesome. And who's doing all the work? Are you guys contracting that out to loggers and whatnot? Are you guys doing the work? How are you getting that done on such a large scale?
Yeah, so the logging, we were fortunate enough. We were enrolled in an EQIP program there. It's a patch clear cut program through EQIP. They pay pretty good. So even though the timber wasn't worth much at all, not much more than pulp, we were able to entice the loggers to come in there and do the work for us. So, and I think we ended up with enough pulp that we didn't have to pay them. So we were able to pocket some of that money to pay for other improvements. But those EQIP programs are great for that, especially the timber value is so low. So yeah, that was contracted out to loggers. And then the dirt work, the actual stumping and stuff, we have a habitat business ourselves. It's called Superior Whitetail Habitats. And we mainly work right there in Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois. But we've got a biologist on staff that writes. What do y'all call them? Land plans? Is that what you call? What do you call them?
Yeah, land plans. Yeah.
So we do consultations with landowners and that sort of thing. I used to do them. Don't do them anymore. I don't have time. But now Philip Sharp is our biologist. He's got 30 something years of experience and does that sort of stuff. And actually, we brought the Land and Legacy guys in, came in and wrote our management plan on that farm. I really like their style. and you can cut all this out if you don't want me talking about anybody else. But anyway, it won't hurt my feelings at all. But so with our habitat business, we've got all the equipment. So we hire our own habitat company to come in there and do it. But we've got dozers and excavators and all the skid steers, all the stuff, and the manpower to do it. So we're not actually out there. It's too big of projects, to do. I mean, there's been equipment running on that farm almost nonstop for 6 months, and and now we've got a wetland impoundment that's going in. It's going to be, that was a crazy deal. It was a 20-acre sycamore plantation where they planted sycamores in the river bottom years ago. For again, the paper company did it, and we got, and this entire property had been permitted for a rock quarry. There's millions of dollars of high quality limestone beneath us. Our neighbor to the north is a rock quarry, and they had permitted to do a rock quarry there. And at some point in time, the guy changed his mind and donated the entire property to the National Wild Turkey Federation. And they enrolled it in a conservation easement, and we eventually bought it from the National Wild Turkey Federation. They, when COVID hit, all those nonprofits were struggling, and they put this on the market to stay afloat. Now things had kind of started coming back by the time we actually bought it, but I think it was an asset that they didn't want on their books anyway. So, but anyway, that sycamore plantation had been clear cut in preparation for stripping everything for the rock quarry. And man, it was a mess because when they did it, they had no thoughts about what might happen later because they're going to strip it all. So they went in there with heavy equipment while it was wet, and there was 4 and 5 foot deep ruts everywhere. So we had to go in there with heavy equipment and stump it out from the very beginning. And that was all part of we got the approval through our contract to be able to do that. Now we were upside down on that part of the project for sure because it cost us more to stump it than what they paid us. But we left it as a clear cut as long as we needed to fulfill that contract. And man, you talk about phenomenal habitat. When we got done with that, it's 20 something acres. And it come back and just solid ragweed, man. You'd walk through there, and we grew a giant that year as well. He ended up dying from blue tongue, but he was living in that stuff. And I mean, you don't get much better browse than ragweed. It was like a 20-acre soybean field, and I mean the browsing was everywhere. And anyway, so now we're turning that into a waterfowl area. We're right on the river, and we'll have. I don't think we have an exact number yet, but somewhere 10 or 12 acres that we can flood, that we'll be able to plant and flood and have duck hunting right there on the river. And we've put in another wetland impoundment as well that's adjacent to that. That's an old oxbow. And we went in and dammed it up, and we were able to get some government assistance with that as well to help offset the cost of that. But I think it's about 15 acres of water, but it's got a lot of trees and shrubs and things like that in it now. So it's been flooded now we've left the gates in and kept it flooded, I guess, over a year now. So we're going to leave it flooded for a couple of years and try to drown out some of that stuff to get a little more open water. And then we'll start seasonally flooding it as well. So then you'll get a lot of natural food growing in there for the ducks, and we'll flood that out. And it should be a great loafing area. We won't hunt that at all. We'll hunt the big impoundment that's all open water. So,
okay. Is a plan for the Kentucky Buck Factory? Is that to hold on to it long term, or are you guys doing all this work to cash in and move on up to the next Kentucky Buck farm, or what's the thought there?
So that's a great question, and we talk about that every time we're together. What is the plan? And we don't have one, to be honest with you. I think ultimately, I'm not going to own that farm until I die, unless I die pretty soon, But let's hope not. But anyway, eventually we will sell it. There's no doubt that sometime down the road, but it's not like a flip. I've done flips before. This is definitely not a flip. We're going way overboard. I mean, we've built a 7,000 square foot lodge on this thing. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of property. We picked out the hardest spot possible to build a lodge, and it's right up on the top of a big steep ridge. We had to build a road up to it. And we offer that out. It's actually you can rent it. It's a VRBO or Airbnb, whatever you want to call it. And We host corporate events there. I have several folks. We've got there's a couple companies that host their Christmas parties there and things like that. And we've got a local football coach that hosts his coaching clinics there in the springtime and different things. I think we've had a wedding there, and we made the mistake once of allowing a bachelor party. That'll never happen again. That's probably not a story I'll tell on the air, but it's a pretty good story nonetheless. But anyway, yeah. So that's it's all. None of us are financially able. We're strapped with debt up to our eyeballs and going on a wing and a prayer. And so far, it's working. We always are looking for another way to monetize a property and make it make sense. So. And I would advise anyone that's looking into owning land, get creative. There's all kinds of ways that you can monetize a property. And now with short-term rentals so popular and vacation rentals being so popular, I mean, if you're going to have a hunting property with a cabin on it, why on earth would you not rent that out during the off season? We don't allow the rentals in the cabin or in the lodge to impact our hunting at all. And everybody says, well, is this a hunting? Are y'all outfitters? No, we're not outfitters. We don't allow anyone to hunt on the property but us, which may sound kind of greedy, but in the end, that's why we own it is to have a place for us and our buddies to go hunt. So, but we're always, trying to get creative. And these EQIP programs and stuff are a great way for us to do these big habitat projects and not come out of pocket with all the money. I mean, there's just no way we could afford to do what we're doing without those programs. And, yeah, so.
I love it. I think that's a huge takeaway for people today is to go sign up, go apply, get that conversation started with those guys. And don't take it all out of pocket. Let Uncle Sam pay for some of it, right? So.
And I will tell you, it can be very frustrating dealing with those. And I don't want to sound negative towards government employees because I used to be one. And a lot of government employees are great, but I think they're overworked and underpaid. And some of them are great. I mean, they are really good. Other ones, they're just, they are what they are. They're what you think of whenever you hear that stereotype. And so what I would tell you, there are companies, and again, I'm not trying to promote superior whitetail habitats because we're very much regional. We don't travel around all over. We just don't we can't. We have too many clients right here close to us. And we started Superior Whitetail Habitats to accentuate our real estate business. We're in real estate and we were constantly having to find a dozer operator and this guy and that guy. And we started that to help our clients. So we have already built clientele here already. So I'm not trying to shop for business at all. But what I will tell you is Philip knows those programs because he spent 20-something years working for the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, so he knows those EQIP programs inside and out. And he is someone like that, and not just him, but someone like that can be a huge resource. So try to find, if you don't get the help you want when you go to the NRCS office, try to find a consultant somewhere that is familiar with those programs and not just one that wants you to stroke a check for their maps. Okay. Learning those programs is vital to help guys be able to afford these big projects. My farm in Warren County that I sold, the bigger farm I said I'd bought and we were going to build on and just realized that wasn't going to make sense financially. I put it in the EQIP, or put some EQIP projects on it. It has about 20 acres of cropland. They pay for me to put cover crops on it every year. Phenomenal program, man, because I don't even own the farm anymore, but I had him sign an agreement that still allows me to do that. Now, he pays if it goes over the budget, he pays for it, but he loves it. I went and looked at it the other day. It's a solid green field that's nothing but clover and wheat and radishes. It's phenomenal. It's the best deer plot in the country over there. And it didn't cost him a dime. It didn't cost him a dime to do that. So if you have cropland and your farmer's not already planting cover crops, or even if he is, that's a no-brainer, man. It is a no-brainer. Now, it may not be, I've got a pretty high rating because I'm a disabled vet, but it may not. So my payment is a little higher on that, and it covers it covers the cost of the seed, and we have an ag drone as well. But I pay what you would pay for the ag drone. I don't get a discount on this. So when I hire him to come spread my seed with the drone, I'm paying what everybody else does. But it covers 100% of that for that farm and another farm that I take care of. We do about 60 acres of cover crop on those two properties every year. And that's a program that anybody can put in for if you have cropland. And even if your farmer's already doing it, help him out a little bit. Maybe he'll give you a little kickback, or maybe it'll allow you to leave some crops standing in a corner of a field and not have to come out of pocket for it. So it's a phenomenal program. But back to me putting in for equip on that, outside of the cover crop, my contract was like $900 on 257 acres to manage brush management, to manage invasives on 2 acres. I laughed at it. I'm like, this is a joke. But I dealt all with the government employee that didn't care, man. So now that guy that owns the farm now messaged me the other day. He's got a $40,000 equip project going in this year. $40,000. Now that's probably not going to cover the whole cost of it. It's usually about 80%, but I don't know. I don't even know what he's doing, but it's significant. Whatever it is, 40 grand, and that's a project that he's going to do to enhance his habitat that he would never have done without that government funding. And I'm the first guy that says our government shouldn't be wasting all this money, but if they're going to, they might as well waste it on me and you and all these other guys out there that are doing something good for the habitat and wildlife. That's the way I look at it. So.
Well said. Well said. That's great advice, Dave. I appreciate that. I think I want to have you back on in the future, talk more about the Buck Factory and kind of see how your farm turns around too. But we'll wrap this up with a rapid fire segment by Latitude Outdoors. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Our favorite beverage?
Got bourbon.
All right. Favorite venison recipe?
Man, my favorite venison recipe is probably the one my family likes. I make it a lot. It's literally like stewed venison and rice. It's really simple. It's venison and onions and rice in a crock pot.
Love it. Love it. What bow are you shooting these days?
I've got two. Both are Matthews. I've got a VXR, which is what I hunted with this year, and I've got a brand new one that I haven't even got set up yet. I got it back in the summertime and had I don't even know the model of it. I think it's a lift. I don't remember exactly which one, but yeah, I'm not a techie bow hunter, man. I never have been. But I love my Matthews bows, and I've shot just about everything. I used to be a bow tech guy. First bow I ever had was a Jennings Buckmaster. Have you ever even heard of a Jennings Buckmaster?
I can't say I have.
That's the first bow that I ever killed a deer with. The first bow I ever owned, I actually ordered from Bass Pro when I was in Germany, and it was like a Barrel Whitetail 2 or something like that. But the first one I ever actually hunted with was a Jennings Buckmaster. And how old are you?
I'm 38.
Okay, yeah, you were probably about 10 whenever that thing came out. But man, they sold a blue bazillion of them. It was a great bow. So, but yeah, I've shot a bunch of different bows over the years, but I've been shooting Matthews now for I don't know, about 10 years, I guess.
All right, food, water, or cover? What's most important to you? You can
Cover.
only pick one.
Cover.
Got it. Your favorite habitat tool or implement?
Oh gosh, it's got to be fire. I know that probably doesn't, maybe not what you're asking, but my drip torch, fire, whatever you want to, yeah.
I like it. All right. Last but not least, your favorite tree.
Oh, chinkapin oak. That's an easy one.
All right. Why is that?
Man, I don't know, because it sounds funny, I guess. I don't know why. I read something one time that said the tannin content of chinkapin oak is the lowest of all the white oak species. Quercus muhlenbergii, I think, is what the Latin name is. I think it's Muhlenbergii, which is interesting because there's a Muhlenberg County in Kentucky, and most people don't know how to pronounce it. They call it Muhlenberg, but it's Muhlenberg. So I don't know where the origin of Muhlenberg is, but it's in the chinkapin name. And I don't know. It's just a cool tree, man. I like them because they're survivors. You find them, it seems like they grow in terrible areas. You'll see them kind of scraggling up through the middle of a cedar thicket in a glade type area, that chinkapin has managed to survive. And they are very attractive to deer. And the house that I raised my daughters in had 2 giant chinkapin oaks in the backyard. And I mean, mega sized chinkapins. And they drop later than most white oaks do. So you getting on into the season a little bit when those are dropping. And the deer would just annihilate them in my backyard. And I love that about them. So probably
man.
Yeah.
Great answer. Well, Dave, this has been a great podcast. Appreciate you coming on today. And thanks for your time. Thanks for your service in both the military and the police force there. If anybody wants to follow along with you, I know you're on Facebook. How should people get a hold of you?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. If you search Dave Skinner Whitetail Properties, you'll find me. I've got a couple of Facebook profiles. My personal one, I probably am more active on it than my business one. But social media, I'm fairly active. So
awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for your time today, and you have a great rest of your day, sir. We'll be in touch soon.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep, thank y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to the Habitat Podcast. We really do appreciate you guys coming back every week to get this awesome Habitat content, and we would appreciate it if you went to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to this podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. That helps us continue to grow and trend in the right direction, attract new listeners, and help us provide better content in the future. Guys, we have a website full of resources. We have a blog on the website. We have YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all linked up at habitatpodcast.com. Our land plan services, merchandise, decals, hats, t-shirts, and I give away a free 5-inch decal to anyone who leaves us a review on Apple iTunes. Really appreciate it. I want to thank our partners, Downburst Cedars, Vitalize Seed Company, Morse Nursery, Packer Max Cultipackers, Stealth Outdoors, First Light Latitude Outdoors, United Country Midwest Lifestyle Properties. Thanks again, guys. We'll be back next week with another great episode of the Habitat Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.